There is a strong emotional, psychological need or urge for simplicity and for security and for feeling good, and it's totally natural.
My guest is a speaker, author, and researcher.
I really believe very strongly that we need ideas how we live together, how we treat animals, how we eat, how we organize mobility.
He specialized in the economics of sustainability and deeply cares about how nature and economy can go hand in hand.
And I'm not saying that we have to convince everybody about sustainability, of course not, but it has to be much more attractive.
With over 2 decades of experience in academia and corporate sustainability, his mission is to provide clear thinking for complex times. My name is Alexander. I'm part of the People and Culture team at Greiner.
Greiner Talks. We talk transformation. Listen in and get inspired.
Welcome, Fred Lux.
Thanks for having me.
Fred, this is very special for me because you were the first guest on this podcast series 4 years ago.
I remember, yes.
I can remember very well doing the interview in your home just outside of Vienna. And today we are here at the Greiner meeting space.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm extra excited today because this is the very last regular interview as part of this podcast series. And I couldn't pick a better guest than the person it all started with.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Fred, we are always looking ahead. We are trying to figure out what's coming next. What move do we need to make next? But sometimes it might also be wise to stop for a second and take a look back. So before talking about the big picture, what has happened to your personal life over the last 4 years?
The most fundamental thing ever in my life, I became a father. I have a 3-year-old son now, and that's a very profound change, of course, and it's very strongly related to sustainability, of course, because it's about intergenerational issues, if you will.
So that profoundly changed your view on the world?
Yes, it did. I'm becoming more impatient with what is going on in the world, and yeah, that's probably the major change. And at the same time, I mean, I tend to write about hope and generosity and things like that. And I think having a child and having hope and maybe having the duty to hope is very strongly related to me.
Would you say that you are more conscious about the environment, about sustainability than you were before having a child? Because there's many studies showing actually this shift in priorities when it comes to sustainability.
No, it actually, I think I was very aware of the relevance of the environment for us as humans. But as I said, I become more impatient because it's so obvious that we are really fundamentally on the wrong track as a society and as a planet, if you will.
And Fred, you were leading corporate sustainability at a large Austrian bank. You co-founded the Center for Sustainability at the Vienna University of Economy. You have written several books on sustainability. Do you think back then in these roles, for example, in corporate sustainability, would you have taken different professional decisions if you already had a child at that point in time? Do you think you would have been more progressive, demanding, challenging the current status? That's where I'm going.
Yes, a very good question. My problem was more that I was too enthusiastic and too strong and too demanding for the times. So many things I thought up and I tried to put forward were really ahead of its time. That was a problem. And now, as you know, it's a mainstream topic for the financial sector.
So being pragmatic and taking it step by step is an important skill in that field.
Yes, but also I think having a bit of a naivete is also good. And especially when you walk in that field, you have to know who's with you, who's against you, and the large group of people that are not decided yet. I think that's a very important clue to when you try to change an organization.
We will come back to that topic a bit later on, but before that, I would like to talk about the big picture. So 4 years ago, when we first met and when we had our first interview, that was in the middle of the pandemic. This was the peak time of the Fridays for Future movement. This was before the Russian war on Ukraine. That was before major political changes in the US. In light of all these disruptions, has sustainability become something like a luxury topic?
My impression is that very strongly. I believe that sustainability is even more important. At the same time, what we can observe, since there are so many problems and people talk about the multiple crisis or the polycrisis, the problem is more that keeping sustainability on the agenda. Because if you have serious security issues, health issues, competitiveness issues, technological issues, it becomes really hard, from my experience, to talk about sustainability and to act about sustainability as it was possible 4 years ago.
Do you agree that there is simply so many other challenges going on at the moment that we don't have enough time and resources and focus to actually address these huge challenges like climate change?
Yes, I agree. That is the public perception. The problem is, if you want to really be serious about crisis management or climate protection, you really have to think these things together. Like, for example, technological innovation. I mean, AI is sucking up so much energy and producing so much CO2 emissions. You can ask, okay, is that the technology we need right now? Or are there criteria to make that more sustainable? And I think it's really very strongly a matter of perspective. And my hope is really that the people that acknowledge that sustainability is a factor for democracy and also for competitiveness, that these people will succeed in their environments.
Clear thinking for complex times. I love this slogan that I found on your website. Do we need clear thinking more than ever before? And is the world really more complex than 4 years ago? What's your take?
My take is that definitely the world is more complex than 4 years ago. I mean, the tragic thing is, when we had our first interview, we probably both thought, okay, it can't get much worse. Like there was shutdowns and stuff like that. But now we have a war 1,000 kilometers from where we talk. And as you said, we have this really, really serious problem of not getting to grips with climate change. And what makes it really complex is how the things are interrelated. I mean, for example, the relevance of fossil fuels for the Russian economy and the need for transforming to a green economy and the need to be economically competitive. All these are just simple examples for how strong the things are related. And I always say the world does not vanish, but our world, the way we used to run our economies, to live our lives, that is really over. And the problem is, of course, that we don't have a very clear picture of what will gonna happen.
So looking back is important, but it's only useful, in my opinion, if you make the right conclusions for the future. So what conclusions do you make when it comes to a sustainable way of living, of doing business, of organizing our society?
I'm just writing a new book on exactly these issues. And one of the main thoughts is that we as a sustainability community have gotten on the wrong track, I think. And we have to really reconsider very strongly what I would call the sustainability mainstream. You have very often very strong statements about what we have to do and how necessary climate policy is and stuff like that. And I agree, absolutely. The problem is that what we try to do in terms of sustainability politics, but also sustainability business, it has to consider and reflect on how different systems in society react. My really strong impression is that with the war, with AI, with the total breakdown of the international order, we really have to reconsider many of the things that we thought that were clear. They're not clear. And as you say, if you want to create a sustainable future, you have to be aware of the complexities and have to have a realistic picture of what's going on.
So the world is complex and simple solutions are not always that effective and the way forward as we want to believe. That's something that you're talking about in your books, in your publications. Why are simple solutions dangerous?
Because first of all, simple solutions don't work normally for complex problems. And the other, maybe even more problematic issue is that there is a strong emotional, psychological need or urge for simplicity and for security and for feeling good. And it's totally natural. But I think very importantly, people that are dealing with sustainability have to face the fact and to have to tell the people that it's not easy. and our problem nowadays is that right now, the people that promise very simple solutions, get the migrants out, whatever, reduce competition, they win the elections right now. And I think it's far beyond sustainability, but also including sustainability. There we have to be really serious about making things different.
So we have to make sustainability mainstream. How can we make it mainstream then?
I'm not so sure anymore whether we would make it mainstream. My take right now is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think we need 50% plus one vote in a democracy to really change things. And this talk about we have to gain a majority and everybody must participate and we have to change our values, right now, I think that's really naive. I think it's really about very strong politics. And I think, and that is important, it's completely compatible with a free and open society.
Has it become easier to live a sustainable life, a life that respects nature and planetary boundaries?
No, I don't think so. Because if I look at my life, I mean, I don't have a car, I don't eat meat and stuff like that, but alone my use of AI is a factor of non-sustainability that wasn't in my life 4 years ago, very simply. And when I look at the company world, AI is sucking up a lot of energy and also sucking up a lot of social attention. So I'm not so sure. But what has really changed probably is that the awareness, in theory at least, is greater. But at the same time, I find really you cannot convince a majority of people for changing their lives by talking about climate change. This will not work.
Putting the hand on your heart, will there be a sustainable future without reducing things, without sacrifice?
Of course not. The point is, economics is basically a cultural and social question. I think what we need in this regard is more honesty, but also more reflection about what is a good life. And then you can say, well, that's pure academia and nobody cares about that. There's no way around that. But for now, I would think it's really, I would say, a macroeconomic problem right now that we have to have a policy and an economic policy and an economic model and business models that foster sustainability and not reduce it or hinder it.
Your latest book is called The Economy of Generosity. How does that go together? Generosity plus sacrificing things.
It goes together because, in my impression, a good life has aspects of efficiency and about reducing things, but also of wasting things and squandering things and celebrating things. And I find that really important as a counterpoint to the mainstream of sustainability, because you have the people that say green growth, we need not only efficiency, or we need post-growth, we need only sufficiency. We need to change our lives. And I really believe very strongly that the truth is in the middle. That of course, we need efficiency, but it's not enough. And of course, we need sufficiency, but many people will not like sufficiency. So again, there is no simple solution. It's a search process, if you will.
So there needs to be balance in the end as well.
Yes, exactly. Balance.
This podcast is not about finger pointing, and it has never been. It's about an open exchange that everybody can benefit from. What topic or what development would you like to point out to our listeners that is increasingly becoming important?
Yeah, I would emphasize again that I cannot point out one issue, but the increasing power of China, the total breakdown of an international order, technological developments that are really not yet at least in favor of sustainability, poverty problems, distribution problems. What I find is that we have to start thinking these things together as one bunch of multiple crisis or polycrisis. And my impression is that it's very smart to look at this mess, if you will, rather than pointing out single issues. At least I, as a sustainability researcher and author, I find my duty is really to look at the big picture. And it's really complicated right now.
Fred, I recently stumbled upon one of your statements, which I liked a lot. The most important resources for the future are hope and ideas. What mindset do we need for a sustainable and successful future?
Openness and curiosity. because we are in desperate need of new ideas, obviously. I mean, I sometimes wonder why people underestimate the meaning of good ideas. I mean, there's always talk about innovation, but mostly interpreted in an economic sense. And I really believe very strongly that we need ideas, how we live together, how we treat animals, how we eat, how we organize mobility. And we are really far away from sustainability or a successful transformation. I mean, the good news is there's not nothing. I mean, some things happen, but the general trend right now is, of course, not one of hope and glory.
And how can we turn that into a more positive feeling of having a positive outlook, because we need to make it happen? There's no alternative.
Two thoughts. One is we really have to have a very strong economic, financial, social, environmental policy that really takes seriously the challenges of sustainability. And the other is that we really have to make sustainability fun and exciting and interesting. And you know that at a corporate level, and I know that also at a corporate level, if people don't feel, it's not enough to know, they don't feel that it's relevant for them. And if they don't realize that it has something to do with their daily lives, with their work, with how they live, how they treat their children, how they vote, as long as that doesn't happen, sustainability will go nowhere. And I'm not saying that we have to convince everybody about sustainability, of course not, but it has to be much more attractive. And as you know very well, the main discourse of sustainability is problem solving, and that is relevant. But we also have to very strongly go in the direction of it's a contribution to a good life.
A wonderful person who was also guest on this podcast recently passed away at the age of 91. The incomparable Jane Goodall. Spreading hope was the mission of her life. How can you personally contribute to spreading hope?
I can do that by being a good father and the author of very interesting and provocative books.
Fred, I'd love to continue asking questions, but we are slowly coming to an end of this conversation. However, before I let you go, I'd love to invite you for a short word wrap.
Greiner Talks. Let's wrap it up. I get inspired by
some.
We need to start.
Starting.
Let's talk about
Fun.
what I wish for.
Peace.
Your message to the world.
Peace.
Thank you so much for this conversation 4 years after the first interview of Greiner Talks.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations to this series, really.
Well, that was the last regular interview on that podcast series. However, there will be one more final and special episode giving you some insights, background stories and behind the scenes. And I hope there will also be 1 or 2 quotes from Fred Lux in this episode.
If I may add, I think everybody who was interviewed by you was also inspired by you.
Thank you so much. That's very kind words. Nevertheless, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you. It has been an incredible experience to interview so many unique people over the last 4 years, share their thoughts with a lot of listeners. So a huge thank you for everyone listening in, for commenting on social media or for sharing your feedback directly with me. And also a big thank you to my colleagues at Greiner who have been supporting this project with their time and energy and ideas. So that's it for now. Stay tuned for our very, very last episode. Have a look at fredlux.com and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Greiner Talks. Visit greiner.com